Hey y'all, it's your favorite healing coach, Coach Kim the author, here with a quick word for your mind, body, and spirit. I don't know how y'all feel about Disney movies, but they are absolutely my jam, okay? And my new favorite Disney movie is Moana. And my favorite character in Moana is her grandma. One, because she reminds me of my grandma, and I fell in love with this movie while my grandmother was in transition. And two, her grandma could see who she was meant to be before she could put a finger on what she was feeling. And she pushed her to it in spite of what her son, Moana's dad, wanted for her. And spoilers ahead if you've never seen the movie, just FYI. Moana's grandma pushed her past her curiosity so that she could understand that her calling wasn't just curiosity. It was greater than her, and it was meant to benefit their people more than the way her dad saw her, more than the way her dad wanted her to just be the next chief. Now, I watched this movie like 100,000 times, and I always think I've seen everything and understood everything that there is for me to know and understand. And the other night when I was watching it, I saw a few things I'd never seen before. Why are these bugs bothering me all of a sudden, Jesus? Anyway, so Moana's dad, out of fear that he would lose her because he lost his friend to the ocean when he was a child, was willing to keep her from her calling and call it protection because he couldn't handle it, even though what she needed to do was designed to save the same people he wanted her to lead, who would have died on that island had she not broken away from him, broken away from tradition and what they wanted for her. He was keeping the family and the bloodline bound to old traditions and fear. And I saw only one person pushing her, and that was her grandma. Literally on her deathbed, she pushed Moana to go and break the pattern that had been holding them back for, I don't even know how long. And no sooner than she decided to venture out past the reef, you see her grandma's spirit become the stingray, and we know that she's transitioned. Now, before I get into Maui's part of Moana's story, if you don't know his story, he's a demigod who was born to human parents who tossed him in the ocean because they didn't want him. But then their gods found him and made him a demigod. This resonated with me because for those of us who have ever felt tossed away by our parents, physically and or emotionally abandoned by our parents, God needs you to know that he's got you. He never left you. And Psalm 27:10 reminds us that when mother and father forsake us, God will lift us up. Their gods made Maui who he was, not just for himself, but to one day become the friend and mentor that Moana needed to train and guide her to get her where she was supposed to go. But then there was a point when she had to go alone, and Maui left her. Not only because he didn't want to go out of his own fear of defeat, but that was Moana's pivotal moment. And even though Maui came back at just the right time, she had to go alone. She had to start that part of the venture by herself to prove to herself that this is who she was. She'd been searching for herself all her life, and this was the moment that she found herself. And if you're anything like me, and your journey has been anything like mine, you've been angry at the people that left you, angry with God for the people that he removed from your life, and angry at life for having to go through this part of the journey alone. Maybe you have a spouse or some kids or a friend or two that God has allowed to stick around, or maybe he's brought them back into your life. But the people you used to go hard for, the ones you used to go hard with, aren't there anymore. And it's been hard and it's hurt because you thought y'all were ride or die. You thought they'd be there for you in the best times of your journey and definitely in the worst times to help you get through. But God is like, no, they can't come. This part you have to do without them. This part is just for you to learn and grow and build and be built, trained and transformed into exactly what God always planned for you to be. This part is where the rubber meets the road, and you have to discover who you truly are. And that's a task that you have to do on your own, a task that you have to win on your own. Just you and the lessons God's given you. But you got this. And you got this because God's got you. And I think sometimes we really take for granted how much we have when all we have is God. Because physically, we want a hug. Physically, we want to pick up the phone and call them and vent and cry. Physically, we think we need them there, pushing us. But if all we got is God, we got all we need. And trust me when I tell you, I know how that sounds. 5 years ago, if you told me that, I probably would have been pissed. Especially if you're just spouting off scriptures and hadn't been through anything remotely close to what I was dealing with. But as someone, Jesus, as someone who I used to say lost it all, but as someone who God stripped of everything he determined I didn't need, no matter how much my flesh and my ego may have wanted it, he took it all away and left me with just him, the master builder, rebuilding my life and rebuilding me one tear, one prayer, one act of obedience, one completed assignment, one step of faith, one divine brick at a time to get me to where he predestined me to be, to get me to become and walk in who he created me to be. And I do it again. Because even though I don't know it all and can't see it all and only can prophesy in part, I know that God cannot lie and he won't leave me now. He never left me before. He won't leave me how he found me. He won't forsake me, and he's not going to leave you either. Trust the process, stay the course, stay on task, stay on the journey. And I know I say that a lot, but the only way to get through is to go through. Your blessings are on the other side of your obedience. Your favor is in your yes. Let God lead you and you'll never go astray. Until next time, stay blessed.